Hey, welcome back to the Noble Ones podcast. My name's Kristen Ruprecht, and I'm so glad you're here this week. We are going to be talking about living with an unarmored heart. What does that even mean, you guys, to have an armored heart? So we're going to break that down this week, and I'm going to give you some signs that your heart may be closed, some signs that you're living with an open heart, and then some different ways that we can practice opening our heart so that we can begin to live more fully and connect to ourselves emotionally and then to other people. But before we get into that, I just want to thank you for coming to the podcast. If you're returning, I really appreciate you coming here week after week to check out the content, and hopefully you're getting some great emotional insight. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. This is just a platform where I feel comfortable, talking about emotions. It's raw talk about emotions and what we all go through and feel on a daily basis, and then just sharing stories, of how we're overcoming our challenges and what we're doing to work through things emotionally. So thank you so much for being here, and just stay on the journey with me. Subscribe to the podcast, and that way you don't miss any episodes. So let's jump in. Why did I even want to talk about this? Well, it seems like lately I've been up against, connecting with people on a level that I would like to, because I feel like people's hearts are closed. And as an emotion coach, what I do when I work with clients is this is what we're talking about, is anything that's going on in your life that's preventing you from getting to that next place where you want to be. And then we dig into what are the emotional blocks and the self-limitations behind that. And what I've been finding, and I've found this in the past, but it seems just so even more apparent right now. And it could be because there's just so much fear going on in the world, and fear tends to be a huge heart blocker. But when I start to ask people questions and they really can't even connect to an emotion or to a feeling or even be specific about what they're feeling, that is usually a sign of an armored heart, a guarded heart. They've been hurt somewhere along the line, or they're just completely emotionally disconnected. And I also see it in coping mechanisms. So when you start to, dig into why you're doing things or solutions that you're trying that aren't working, a lot of the coping mechanisms that we will establish are to guard our hearts. And so my belief is that in order to live a really, really full life, we have to open our hearts. We have to take the walls down. We have to unarmor ourselves in order to truly connect with everything. And so when you think about the heart, you guys, think about it like it is your life giving force. It's creating the oxygen and the blood flow that goes throughout your entire body. If your heart stops, your life stops. So, the heart is symbolic of so many things. It's life-giving. It is universally and like metaphorically and symbolically it's love. The heart equals love. We see it in our emojis. We see it everywhere with the heart gestures. It's like love is, when you think of love, you automatically think of the heart. And then the other thing about the heart is it's truly the gateway to your emotions. It's the gateway into connecting deep within yourself and understanding how you feel. So I just think it's really important that we talk about it and, go through all the reasons, like what is going on when our heart's closed. It's protection. We've all been hurt in the past. And so it's natural to want to close down and shut down and, avoid that feeling of being hurt again, or a feeling that we've had in the past that we were unable to cope with. So it makes sense that you would do that, but it also makes sense that it would prevent you from truly living a full life. And, there's another another aspect to the heart, we're not just talking about it emotionally, we're also, or mentally, connecting emotionally and mentally to the heart, but there's a physical aspect of the heart. Like we have heart chakra, we have different chakra centers in our body, right? Energetic centers. And the heart chakra is a very important one that you want to make sure is balanced energetically. And, in order to do that, it has to be open. And so I was looking up the heart chakra and just some interesting things about it. And the name in Sanskrit, anahata, means unhurt or unstuck, which is really interesting to me. The color that represents the heart chakra is green. The element for it is air. And the signs of balance are our ability to openly give and receive love. So if you're not open, if your heart is guarded and armored, you're not only not going to be able to fully love someone else and love yourself, but you're not even going to be able to receive it. And so signs of imbalance in your heart chakra physically or emotionally would be the inability to love yourself and others, like I just said, hate, depression, grief, selfishness, jealousy. Any of those things would be emotional behaviors or characteristics of a closed heart. And I have a really crazy story about my heart emotionally and then what was happening to it physically, which is why I wanted to bring up the physical aspect of, your heart and your heart chakra. So when I went through my enormous stage of grief back in 2017, and if you haven't heard this in a nutshell, I was going through a divorce, my brother passed, and I lost a job, all in a 3-month period. So the amount of grief and sadness and depression and just very heavy, negative, dense emotions that I felt was, it goes without saying, right? You usually have your top list of all the things that, if you're going through one of these things, it's like the most stressful thing. And I was going through 3 of them at once. So anyway, what happened was, I was moving through and I would get these feelings on my heart that literally felt like I had elephants on my chest. It was like this asphyxiation that felt like, oh my gosh, am I having a heart attack? And I'm a healthy person, I exercise, I eat well. So it was really alarming to me that I would have that feeling. And it was, I kind of panicked, I was like, this just something doesn't feel right. I knew intuitively, I'm like, something's not right about this. So the first time I go to the ER and they, hook me up to the EKGs and they run all the tests. And essentially it's like, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with your heart. Everything's good. Maybe you're stressed out, you need more sleep, whatever. But this feeling, it was on and off in the long term, it lasted about 2 years, but it got so severe twice that I ended up going to the ER twice. What I know now is what I'm explaining to you is that my heart was so emotionally blocked that all of those feelings of grief and despair and depression and hurt and sadness were literally like breaking my heart open. It was a feeling that the energy was stuck in my heart chakra. So why it ended up lasting for so long, that feeling of having elephants, is because it took me that long to truly work through all the layers and layers of emotion from that devastating event and that I had buried over time. So, we can talk about, emotions, any kind of emotion that you're burying, it does store in your body and you will get physical signs and symptoms that are due to emotions. So, having a blocked heart for me resulted in literally feeling like I was having a heart attack, to where I went to the emergency room. And then the second time, I even went as far as to do a treadmill test. And I was really concerned. It was crazy. So anyway, so let's move on. What does it mean? And I wrote this down because I really wanted to think about it. What does it mean to have an open heart? What does it look like to live people call it with an open heart or wholeheartedly, to show up wholeheartedly. And what I wrote down, what came to me was like, it's to be emotionally free and vulnerable to love and to be loved and to experience hurt or disappointment. So it's both sides of the spectrum. If you're going to open up your heart and unarmor it, take your guard down, like knock the walls over, what that means is you're going to let in love. You're going to receive love so that you can give love, but you can't shield yourself and just be like, oh, well, it's only going to be love, but I'm never going to allow hurt. I'm never going to allow disappointment. That's life. So you're going to learn through living with an open heart that there's things you can do to set boundaries around it. Once you're more emotionally aware, it's okay. You'll know how to process through things that are hurtful, but it doesn't mean you have to shut it down to not let it in. You've got to let it all in, all of it, everything, every emotion that is either projected at you that you experience yourself. It's about having this full acceptance for everything and knowing that regardless of what you're going through, like you can still keep your heart open. You do not have to shut it down. Because the thing is, when we sever that connection to our heart, when we sever ourselves or cut ourselves off emotionally by armoring up, all we're doing is using that as a means to stay in control, to keep being able to produce and go forward and live our life with a closed heart. But you're not opening up to the entire spectrum, I don't think, of joy that you could truly experience, or even what it feels like to when you go through to process emotions. This is the thing. It's like we're human beings and we're here to experience it all. So no matter what you go through, how amazing is it that you get to feel that? So for example, like when you talk about love and the heart, think about if you're a parent, a grandparent, the first time you held that baby in your arms, like I know for me with my kids, I was blown away when my kids were born. There's nothing that will ever take away from the feeling of I never in my life thought I could love something or there's nothing more in my life that I could feel love for than the love that I had when my kids were born. It's like this, you're holding this baby and this soul that you brought into the world. And it's just like, I don't know, in that moment, that's probably the most love that I've ever felt for anything. And I don't think anything will ever take away from that. But, that's an example. Or for me, like when I see couples or parents with kids and I watch people having exchanges of love and laughter, like that fills me up. That's me experiencing love just by looking at someone else. On the flip side of that, I've experienced some really hurtful things, and I've learned that through them is how I learn and how I've been able to point myself back to more self-love. So if I go through situations like, let's just say like divorce, that's a hurtful situation. Breakups are hurtful. Losing jobs, hurtful. Losing my brother, like the most hurtful thing I've ever experienced. And my heart did want to shut down. It was overwhelmed. It was too much. But I've learned so much by opening my heart back up that's made me more resilient. It's made me more compassionate. It's made me more empathetic, if I could be that, towards other people and what they're going through. So by allowing everything in and then having a way to process and cope with all feelings that you're filtering through your heart, it really does. It helps you grow and expand. So I want to go through some things, and this is not a limitless list. I mean, there's so many more probably, but these were the top ones that stuck out for me. And, I think you can ebb and flow between open heart, closed heart. But I think just listing these off is really good to just take note of and be like, wow, maybe I am more closed off than I thought, or wow, maybe I am more open hearted than I thought. So some things, 10 things that I wrote down. If you're living with an armored heart, you're guarded. Number one, this is so funny, you guys, because this comes up in every single topic I decide to talk about. Perfectionism. If you are going through life trying to be perfect, there's a good chance that your heart's closed. Fear of failure, scarcity, like there's not enough, that things are limited versus limitless. Numbing yourself out, not wanting to feel at all. It's too hard, so you just numb out. I wrote victim or Viking. So you've got that victim mentality where everything is somebody else's fault. You don't know how to take any ownership. You're always projecting outward onto other people. Or Viking. The Viking mentality is like, I'm going to go out and crush people so that I don't get crushed. Always needing to be right. That's a sign of a closed heart. That means you can't be open to hear other people's opinions, other people's perspectives. You're cynical or you're critical. You're always criticizing other people to make yourself feel better, or you have this underlying air of like cynicism about you or about other people, about the world. Hustling, the over hustling, grinding, being super productive in order to feel worthy. Avoidance, emotional avoidance. I mean, we're going to talk about that ad nauseum here, but emotional avoidance is definitely a sign of a closed heart. And then finally, like, think about this in your job. Like if you're a leader or in your friend group, or even as a parent, if you lead as a form of control. So you're always telling people what to do so that you feel like you're in control. So all of those, you guys, are signs of an armored heart, a guarded heart. And when your heart's open, you can connect more, again, to your emotions, to yourself, to other people, to your relationships, to your coworkers. Everywhere in the world that you go, you'll have the ability to connect more when your heart's open. So signs of an open and receptive heart are empathy, compassion. So you're able to model that. Once you've kind of realized like you don't have to hold on to that hurt anymore, you can open yourself up, you'll be more empathic, you'll be more compassionate. Practicing gratitude, the ability to feel thankful, the ability to feel, to recognize the goodness in your life, the goodness in other people. That's a sign of an open heart. Celebrating your milestones and successes. So the ability to see like, wow, like I reached that goal. I'm really proud of myself, or to recognize it in someone else. Like you're doing an amazing job. Like it looks like you've lost 10 pounds. Like we should go out and celebrate that. Those are examples, but to be able to celebrate successes means that you're open to receiving, you're open to growth. Emotional integration, that you can take, like I said earlier, no matter what comes at you, whether it's goodness or hard times, hardship, you're able to integrate those emotions, process those emotions, so you're not getting stuck and closing down. Learning from mistakes and then setting new boundaries around them. So a lot of times, we'll have an experience and it's like, I don't ever want to go through that again. So I'm just going to shut down. And that's, you don't want to do that. You want to take what you learned from the lesson, and then you want to integrate that, and then you want to set new boundaries. So that relationship didn't work out. So the next time I see those certain qualities and characteristics in a person that I would potentially consider for a relationship, that's not going to work for me, because now I've got these boundaries because I learned. And let's see, acknowledging fear. Like fear is a big one. Like if you're living in fear, a lot of times your heart's closed. If you're not living in fear, you would have the ability to, you'll be able to take more risks. You'll step into things more courageously if your heart is open. Knowing your value, knowing your worthiness, like if you can appreciate things about yourself, if you can know, these are the things that I value in my life, they're important to me. These are things that, I love about myself, that I recognize in me, that are my strengths, that are my unique qualities. that's having an open heart, when you can actually connect to those values and qualities within yourself. The ability to commit and share a purpose with others. This is common in work. When you work and you collaborate with other people, what are you working towards together? What's the common goal? Is it, you're able to do your teamwork? Essentially, it's like teamwork. You can collaborate and work with other people, as opposed to it's all about me. It's all about what I want to do. It's all about how I want it to go. You have to be able to collaborate and work in tandem with people. That's open-heartedness. And then finally, with a closed heart, I always said, as you're leading other people as a form of control. When your heart's open, you lead your entire life from the heart. You make your decisions from the heart. You realize you can stop and say, if I make this decision, how is it going to impact that other person? If I say this, if I do this, what's the potential for me? What's the potential of impacting someone else? So you're able to lead with an open heart versus as opposed to just trying to control everything so that you don't have to feel pain. So those are signs, of either way, closed, open. We probably all go back and forth between them. But the thing is, gosh, when we close our heart down and we imprison it, it kills courage, you guys. It kills, which I talked about on the a couple podcasts ago, how important courage is to move us through fear. And having an open heart can be scary sometimes because you're opening yourself up to getting hurt. That's just a fact of life. But if you close it down, then you're literally killing that courage to grow, that courage to evolve. So I want to talk now. I want to give you some takeaways, as we wrap up, that you can practice for taking the armor down around your heart and then keeping it down and starting to live more open-heartedly. So number one, I'll give you a guess, is emotional awareness. I'll say it every time. You want to start to notice when your heart closes. And it's almost always going to be when a trigger comes up. And this has happened to me recently. There's been some confrontations with people that I care about, but the relationship is turning in a different direction. And so when that confrontation happens, I feel everything now in my heart because I've worked so hard to open it that the first thing I do is I feel restriction in my heart. And then all my coping mechanisms want to come up. I want to run away. I want to go into what are all the solutions? How am I going to solve it? How am I going to fix it so that I don't have to, feel like I'll go into overproductivity, overworking to avoid. And so you really just want to start to notice the feeling in your heart when it closes down. Another way I notice this is with people is when, if you share your emotions with someone else, and you might notice in them, the minute you start to talk about something emotional that happened, if they're uncomfortable, if their heart's closed, you'll see them shut down. And what they'll do is they'll avoid, they'll change the subject, they'll redirect the conversation because they can't handle your open-heartedness and your emotion trying to connect with their heart. And they're like, no, my heart is closed. I can't receive that you're sharing with me emotionally. So awareness, you just want to start to notice the patterns when you feel your heart shut down. And then number two is having an emotional processing method, something like the Noble One method that I created to work through challenging emotions in real time. You want to understand your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, and why you do the behaviors that you do in response to emotions. And once you understand that and you have a method, you can work through it in real time. And then you don't take that emotion and shove it back in the heart and block it. So having an emotional processing method is really important. The third one is reflect. It kind of goes with the first one. Once you become aware of, wow, my heart feels like it shuts down every time this happens, you want to start to reflect on the patterns. You want to start to recognize, and ask yourself questions. When did my heart get broken? What were times in my life where I literally felt like my heart broke? And, a lot of times it'll be related to relationships, loss, grief, things like that. But notice the patterns, and then notice when you feel it restrict. Is it around certain people? Is it around certain, it could be people or certain emotions that people share with you or certain triggers. When do you feel it restrict? And then what are the behaviors that you do to armor back up? So are you, the things that I listed off before, are you numbing? Are you criticizing? What are the different behaviors that you're using to keep your heart guarded? So that's what you want to do. Reflect on those, because the only way you're going to know is if you figure it out. You got to look within yourself to figure these things out. Number 4, these are a little bit more doing things outwardly. So intentional acts of love. So what can you do as part of like a self-love practice that's intentional for you? Today, I'm going to do something really loving for myself. I'm going to go get my nails done, or I'm going to go for a hike, and then I'm going to stop at this coffee shop and just sit and have a warm cup of coffee or tea. But what you're doing is, it's not that you're just doing that, because you could do that, but it's the intention of, I'm going to do this and because it's loving for myself. Or you could do it outwardly. You know what? I'm going to pick up lunch and just show up at my friend's office and surprise her. Or I'm going to go and get a card and drop it off on the windshield of a friend just to let them know that I'm thinking about them. So doing these intentional acts of love and then noticing, how does it feel? Instead of just going through the motion, wow, how did that feel when that person called and said, I can't believe you left that card on my windshield. Like, that literally made my whole day. Notice how that makes you feel. Notice how that fills your heart up. And then the final one, this is, again, relates back to the heart chakra, what I was saying at the beginning. There is a physical component to this as well. So physical things that you can do to help open up your heart are things like energy healing. And that can be going to a Reiki master, someone that knows how to balance your chakras. You can do sound healing. You can actually even listen to, there's things called binaural beats on YouTube. Even you hook them up, put your headphones in and pick a frequency that's heart opening. So these are things that can clear the energy in the heart chakra. Yoga's amazing. There's heart opening, which typically are things that open up your chest in certain poses. You would be amazed at the emotions that can come out of that. I can think back to when I went on a yoga retreat post my big traumatic experiences about a few months after all of that occurred. I actually went on a yoga retreat and, I cried almost, I would say 99% after every yoga practice, doing all those heart openers. I would just end up on my mat crying because I was releasing all of the trauma, all of the sadness, all of the grief, just by moving the energy in my body and doing those heart opening poses. Spoken mantras. So a mantra is, there's all kinds of mantras. You can look it up online, but you speak them out loud. You can do them in meditation where you're just repeating the same mantra over and over. It could be something as simple as, I am love, I am worthy of love, I am worthy to receive love. Mantras and affirmations, and then you can write them down. You can journal. At the top of a journal, like journal prompts, what is it that's blocking my heart? And just start to write. When was it that I felt like my heart got broken? And just start to write. So you want to, use written and spoken mantras and affirmations and journaling as a means to help you figure out why you may be armoring up your heart. And then the final one I wrote as far as a physical thing to open the heart is meditation. So many, again, I use YouTube for so many different things, but there's guided meditations on there for opening the heart. And just look up, guided meditation on heart opening, and all kinds of things will come up for you. Or you just sit with yourself and you just focus on the heart, put your hands on your heart, just breathe. Imagine breathing in love. Like we said before, the color green, filling up your heart with the color green. Pink is also another color that relates to love. Filling up your heart with that color and then imagining like it's shining outward. It's whatever you want to do in your imagination, but just focusing inward on yourself to open up your heart to receive love and to be able to give love. So hopefully, you guys, we have broken down what it means to live with a more open heart. And I'm not saying this is easy. I still work on it a lot. There's things that come up, daily, weekly in life where you just want to shut down. It just seems too hard to feel the pain or the hurt or whatever that emotion is. But I'm telling you, I think the more that we can live courageously and keep our hearts open for ourselves and for other people, it just connects you to, I don't know, nobility. That I feel like a noble characteristic, probably one of the most noble behaviors, is love. And so I want you to have that, and I want you to experience that. And so hopefully throughout this time together, you're able to get a few things to think about, a few things that'll help you on your emotional journey to open up your heart, let your guard down, and truly live and walk the path towards emotional freedom. So thank you guys so much. Until next time, don't forget to like the podcast or the YouTube, subscribe, share, leave comments. Let me know what else you guys want to talk about. And until next time, so much love. Mwah.